Welcome to Wealth for Real live stream. I'm Christopher Anastasio, your host for the live stream, as always. It's Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. And wanted to share with you guys in this live stream very first impressions from an article about Donald Trump's 40 Wall Street property, sort of his crown jewel of his real estate portfolio. It's the building that he acquired in 1995 when he was kind of like pulling out of the wreckage of his real estate sort of meltdown in the early 90s. And he acquired like the ground lease is what they call it. I have no fucking clue what that is. But he acquired the ground lease for, I think it's like 99 years, like the typical lease of like almost a century, for $5 million. And then proceeded to value it, I guess, like, part of the reason that he was indicted for, or the case that Letitia James brought against him, that, you know, so he fraudulently valued real estate portfolios to get certain mortgages and stuff like that. It was valued at like $530 million. So it was valued at like 100x. You know, they themselves valued it at 100x times what he paid when he acquired the property. But anyway, Wall Street Journal had an article about it. It was very recent, so it was within the last 24 to 72 hours, I believe. But the article was really kind of picking apart the dilemma that Trump is going to face with regard to this property, given the wider backdrop, the broader issue going on in the commercial real estate marketplace, that, you know, I've talked about extensively on the channel here, and I'm kind of tracking very closely at an individual, you know, perspective. And basically what they were saying was that, you know, first of all, the vacancy rate on the property has gone up from about, he said it was around 5%, right before he started running for president, 15, to a current figure of around 20%. So vacancy rate has gone up 4x, right? And I think they said the largest tenant, or one of the largest tenants, Dwayne Reed, vacated like 23,000 square feet of space in there on the ground floor, for whatever reason. And so, of course, this property, I think it's at 40 Wall Street, because they refer to it as 40 Wall. This property has now been subjected to what everybody else is being subjected to, right? It's employers who are allowing employees to work from home, they're, you know, hybrid work, things like that. So they're not, the demand on the space has dropped significantly, right? And so it's dealing with that issue. Now, at the same time, next year, okay, so this is, you know, again, guys, this is the chart that I continually refer to. You got to dig for it. I posted it a couple months ago. There's this great chart that I posted, found it on Twitter, reposted it in a couple places, that showed the maturing commercial real estate loans between 2023 and 28. And it totaled up nearly $3 trillion in loans. Now, obviously, the 23 loans are behind us. Half of the 24 loans are behind us as we approach mid-year. But in 2025, Trump's property, 40 Wall Street, that I'm talking about, is one of the mortgages that will be in the maturing category, right? And experts are saying that if he had to refinance that property today, it's very likely he'd come in at around a 7% interest rate, whereas the rate he has on it now is 3.7%. So you're talking about a doubling in the interest rate, right? So, so obviously bad news there, right? I mean, if he's even able to refinance it, and I say that because I've read articles saying, you know, done some research on the fact that it's not automatic. It's not like just a given that somebody's going to refinance your loan. They might even ask for some of the cash balance back on the principal before they refinance the loan, things like that. But anyway, so he has this refinance issue coming up, and that's if rates, you know, people right now think that the rates are either going to stay steady or be cut, right? Although the chance they're going to be cut, everybody thinks is dwindling. But what if they go up? I mean, that's not even being, you know, I mean, anybody who's considering that is really more on the hawkish side of things, or is maybe, you know, maybe a gold bug like a Peter Schiff. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm saying there's not a very big crowd talking about the fact that these rates may need to go up. So it's very possible by the time Trump comes around to refinancing this $120 million mortgage in 2025, that it's even higher. The interest rate's even worse than 7%, the projection that they called today, right? So, or, you know, present day. So anyway, so this is going to be really interesting, guys, because, you know, Trump obviously has a lot of legal woes going on, and he's paying all these judgments and, you know, posting bond and so forth. And I mean, the question would be, you know, what if he had to sell this thing, right? What if he had to unload this thing? And, you know, he, of course, you know, they're saying it's worth like $500 million because they're basically making the argument, what if you built 40 Wall Street today, right? Like, what if it was an empty lot and you had to put this same building up on that lot today, right? So, you know, but here's the problem, guys. For commercial real estate, I mean, obviously, I've done this with residential properties as well that I use as rental property. You really calculate value by the income generated. And the problem is, I think the article said, if I recall correctly, that it currently was generating like $12 million a year in income. Doesn't really sound like a lot for a property in Manhattan like that. So I may have read that wrong. It may not be a correct representation, but I definitely remember the figure 12.3 million in there. And I think what they were saying was that analysts right now, from bearish to bullish, right, using that $12.3 million figure, the ones who are sort of pessimistic say that the property's worth about 120 million, meaning it's worth the mortgage on it. And then the bullish ones are saying it's worth to up to 200 million based on that 12.3 million. So it's just a multiplier that I think they're using that differs, you know, depending on what you think of the property and the conditions and things like that. So basically, let's say they're right. So Trump's looking at a situation where the building's worth between 120 and 200 million. He has a $120 million mortgage on it. And apparently these banks don't like to, it was something like they typically want to see the property valued at twice the amount that they're refinancing. Something like that, like some kind of hoop that you got to jump through in terms of valuation versus whatever you're trying to refinance. And I believe that's what it was. Like, if you're trying to refinance a $120 million mortgage, the property has to be worth $240 million. Or maybe they don't refinance the whole amount. Something like that, right? I'm kind of doing a little bit of derivation there. But anyway, so all of this kind of sounds bad on the face of it. And that's not even really taking the approach that all these conditions, not just for 40 Wall Street, but the commercial real estate conditions are just going to worsen across the board, right? That we're going to see some kind of, you know, domino effect, some kind of ultra collapse across the entire sector. You know, maybe, who knows? I mean, look at this fucking bird flu, guys. Like, you know, maybe you have more lockdowns and more tenants scurrying for you know, out of the building and breaking leases and so forth, or not coming back, or who the heck knows, right? I mean, maybe you have that black swan event that nobody's even talking about that hasn't been factored into this equation. So it's really going to be fascinating to see, you know, obviously, I think everybody's fascinated whether they're rooting for or against him. You know, what's going to happen to Trump with all these trials that he's going through and potential jail time that he faces. On top of that, the financial ramifications of seeing something like a 40 Wall Street, a crown jewel piece of real estate, have to be sold at, you know, for pennies on the dollar, you know, or refinance at exorbitant rates that totally crimp their output cash flow wise. So it's really going to be interesting, guys. I mean, I definitely think that you know, this is obviously not the only commercial property that's in question here, but it's maybe one of the more interesting ones, higher profile ones, if you will, that's sort of subject to this whole set of conditions that I've been talking about here consistently on the channel. So something to look out for, guys. I will, you know, there was in the last video I did, last live stream, you guys can find on the channel, there was a commenter, super appreciative of this individual dropping a comment, essentially a question asking for the link to the Wall Street Journal article that I was talking about at the time, which was it was talking about like $39 billion in mortgage-backed securities and commercial real estate or something like that. So you guys will see it. It's the video before this one. And I went ahead and dropped the link in there. I can go ahead and do that again this time, guys. In fact, I may just proactively drop this link in as soon as I get a chance. So I'll just drop a comment below where you guys, if you want to, you know, if you want to look it up, you can find it. on Wall Street Journal or WSJ.com. But yeah, really good article about this Trump situation, this specific piece of real estate that could be up for grabs here within the next year or so. And it'll be really fascinating to see what happens with that, and of course what happens with all the trials. So anyway, guys, yeah, just wanted to kind of get you that update, kind of breaking news from my perspective in terms of learning about this implication for Trump's real estate portfolio. So as always, really appreciate you guys checking in on the channel, commenting, questioning, subscribing, forwarding, sharing. Can't thank you guys enough. Really, really, really appreciative of all 86 individuals who've subscribed to the channel as of today. Every person, very, very appreciative of your support of the channel. So hope you guys are having a great Tuesday, and we'll check in with you guys again soon. And be